Hello, 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 hello. Having having some difficulties here. Okay, so just to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing this week, we are talking about revising the college essay. At this point, you should be working on the rough draft of your argumentative essay. And so this week is all about revision. And so just kind of wanted to go over what revision is, what the process of revision is. This is usually the process that students struggle with the most, but essentially it is looking at the essay again through a set of fresh eyes. So oftentimes when you're writing essays, you do multiple drafts, you revise the entire essay or large sections of the essay, usually for higher order writing concerns, structure, logical development, concrete supportive ideas, and assertions. And it's far more than just simple editing for grammar and word choice. So you have to say something important and meaningful. And because this is a beginning and developmental writing class, you're going to need to engage in the act of what is typically called deep revision. It helps you ensure that the essay says something interesting and that it says something worthwhile. It goes so much more beyond just looking at it for grammar. So essentially, you're going to be looking at it through the eyes of your college professor. So you have to revise the entire essay or large sections of the essay, and it requires a critical, objective review of your writing. So that means you need to step back and take a clear and unemotional view. And that's very hard to do when you have worked to create this piece of work and you think it sounds amazing and wonderful. But sometimes it is, revision is the hardest part because you have to take a step back and step away from your emotions. And so that is really difficult to do because it is something that you created. So it needs to be free of grammar, word choice, spelling, and punctuation errors. As a college professor, we have very little tolerance for errors. Again, because this is developmental class, it is something that you will continually be working on, and that's okay. And like I was saying earlier, surface revision is important. Those are the minor grammatical errors, but it's secondary to what's called a deep revision. So as that, real revision is more than just editing. So if you compose an essay on a computer, you understand that revision is an ongoing and it's a constant process. I mean, you have seen us do this in class several times. Every time you hit the delete button, every time you cut and paste, every time you take out a comma, or exchange one word for another, you're working on revision. But when you're doing what's called real revision, you're doing more than just making a few changes here and there. Real revision actually requires that you open yourself up to the possibility that parts of your paper and even your entire paper might need to be rethought and rewritten. This has happened several times to students in the class. I have actually taken their papers, printed them out, and then did a complete and total revise with them, sat down with them one-on-one and just said, look, this is not the direction that you're supposed to be going, or that your sentence structure is not where it needs to be. And so we need to maybe look at that and try to fix it and see what we can't do about it. So again, it is more than just editing. So in order to have a mindset of a college student, you have to pay attention to the writing process. Now, as we've gone through this course, we've done little bits and pieces of things and exercises to help develop that college writer stamina. But more than anything, I hope I've gotten you to really pay attention to your writing process and see how the writing process works. Because the best way to learn to write is to rewrite again and again and again. So when you're revising, you're not only improving your reading skills and your analytical skills, you're also challenging your own ideas. And so that will deepen and strengthen your argument. And because your argument essay is a very important component of this class, You will be able to find the weaknesses in your writing. You may even discover patterns of error. Some of you are really bad with commas. Some of you are really good with commas. Some of you are really bad with sentence structure, and some of you are really good with sentence structure. So it's kind of a combination of your skills. But really, it's basically when you're doing deep revision, you discover some habits and things that undermine your paper and help you make your paper better. So again, like I said, and I'll say it over and over again, revision is more than making a few changes there and here. There's two kinds of revising. There's deep revision and then there's surface revision. So deep revision is the real work. You review your essay to assess the quality of its meaning. Does it say something of value? Can the reader understand what you're trying to say? Is your thesis clear? Is supporting information presented in an orderly, logical, and understandable way? Do your ideas presented hold together? Is what you say important enough to make the reader care about the topic? Have you convinced the reader to agree with your thesis? And those are higher order writing concerns. So again, it is not just simplistic revision. As you go through, you want to fry your big fish first. So you're going to look at meaning, you're going to look at reasoning, you're going to look at the definition of terms, and you're going to look at your factual detail. For example, if I were writing an essay on the pedagogy of teaching, that would be a term that I would have to explain. Essentially, that is the art and the style of teaching and my teaching philosophy and the way that things are done as far as teachers go. But again, that word is not common in everyone's everyday vocabulary, so I would have to define it. And factual detail. So real revision is the entire essay. I have been through this so many times, I can't even tell you. Every time I write a paper, I send it to my mentor. My mentor typically sits down with a red pen, rips it apart, and then we put it back together again, piece by piece. And that's essentially deep revision. It is painful, it is excruciating, and it is difficult, but it is necessary. And it is necessary in order to challenge you to grow as a writer. So you have to really look at your entire paper for places where your thinking maybe needs clarification or where your thesis needs additional development and supporting details. Sometimes you need more specific evidence. Sometimes you need more concrete evidence. Sometimes you have to define terms. Sometimes you need to add an entire step. Because you are writing an argument essay, you need to make sure you have that counterclaim in there. That's extremely important because without the counterclaim, your essay will not have ground to stand on. You might decide you want to restructure your essay or rewrite your paper completely if you discover a new idea that intrigues you. Say, for example, you're writing an essay on the death penalty and you begin to write this essay and you are very much against the death penalty because so many people are put to death for crimes they didn't commit and the Innocence Project. Then you start researching and you find out about the Innocence Project, and the Innocence Project has all these wonderful statistics. And then you find out that in the Innocence Project statistics that they were able to free up this group of murderers called the West Memphis Three. And as you begin to go through and research, you're like, that's really interesting. Why were they convicted? And so that takes you down an entirely different rabbit hole. And before you know it, the whole topic of your essay has changed. That is feasible and that does happen. And as I tell all my students, writing is a fluid process. In 1101, after your 7th assignment, you're typically locked into your topic, but in developmental writing, because this is a shorter essay, you're not necessarily locked into your topic. This is something that you could change if you're having trouble finding sources and things like that. So there's other avenues that you could explore, and that usually happens during the deep revision process. And it sometimes is more effective. So you don't want to really go off on a tangent necessarily, but sometimes your interest is sparked in a different topic from doing the beginning research for your paper. So with that being said, you then have to start cutting. You have to cut out parts of the essay that don't work and be ready to write different sections and to develop your ideas in more deep and meaningful ways. And sometimes it's hard. It's hard But if you cut sections of the paper that are less successful, it will pay off in the long run because your paper will be more cohesive and coherent and will make more sense in the end. So again, as a professor, we expect deep revision. We expect you to work as you write through multiple drafts, expect to see changes in meaning. We expect to see supporting paragraphs. We expect to see supporting details as your essay is developed through multiple drafts. You can't just write a rough draft and submit it as your final draft. That's not the way it works. If you don't put it through revision, we're going to know. And it's very important because just by doing proofreading and correcting grammar and word choice, that does not satisfy a revision requirement. You definitely need to make sure that you are revising your essay before you turn it in. It really does need to take a second look. And as a professor, I'm telling you, you can send it to me. I'll be happy to look at it. I can't guarantee that I'll look at it right away. But if you'll give me a few days, I'll be more than happy to look at it and give you some feedback on things that you can cut out or things that you can change and adapt in order to make it a better essay. Because I want you to be successful as much as you want to be successful so that you can move on to 1101 and not struggle. So what I tell students is on a smaller scale, you may want to start off maybe with your introduction with a deep revision. So you know that your introduction isn't working. Maybe one part of your argument is weak, or you look through your paper, you see some problems and some issues. You're going to focus on that revision aspect, and you want to kind of look at your paper as a whole. That's why I always tell students, make sure you try to outline your paper so that you know what direction you're going to go in. That way you don't have a disaster on your hands waiting to happen. So if you take care of that big fish first, it improves the essay and it possibly improves your final grade as well. So that's extremely important. And then the surface revision is what I call the small fry. So if you write an excellent essay, sometimes you only have to have surface errors stand in the way. And as someone who has been through this and has experienced this, my first writing class that I ever took in undergraduate school, I did have this happen to me. I was writing this paper. I was really proud of it. I thought it was a fantastic paper. And then I got it back and it had gone down one entire letter grade for a surface area error. So you have to make sure that once you take care of the big fish, you address the small fish. Because once you've addressed the big fish areas, at that point, you can really focus on proofreading and editing to create an error-free text for your reader to enjoy. And if you eliminate those surface areas, grammar, word choice, spelling, and punctuation, it is essential to your success in future classes as well as this writing class. And there are some professors out there who have a zero tolerance policy for surface area errors. And that is something that is a very, very big deal. So editing is not the same as revising. So surface revision is editing. That's when all the time it happens. Students confuse editing with revising. Editing is looking for grammatical errors and finding minor problems with a text. They can be fixed by deleting a word. They can be fixed by cutting and pasting a paragraph. When you edit, you're thinking about your reader. When you are working on other things, you're doing commas, punctuation. That is short editing process. You might be happy with how you've written your paper, but the question is, will your reader still find it interesting, or is it going to bore them to tears? So you need to make sure that you rewrite the paper so that it is clearer, more concise, and most important of all, a pleasure to read, because I don't want to read 600-word essays that bore me to tears. So that's critically important. Proofreading, again, that goes under the editing aspect. When you proofread, you're looking for lower order mistakes in your paper. So these include things like punctuation errors, spelling errors, subject-verb agreements, confusion with the commonly confused words. When you proofread, that's when you slow it down, even if you have to read one single word at a time. You need to keep your eyes focused on every single word. And if worse comes to worse, have someone else put their eyes on your paper so they can see it as well. Read it out loud. Use your spell check. Your spell check is there for a reason. Some professors are really less than forgiving with spelling errors because your word processor does come with spell check and it gives you the little red squiggly lines when something is misspelled. College readers and as well as myself, your instructor in the course, I require grammatical and sentence structure correctness and, well, little tolerance for error. I'm a little more lenient than some, but still it is critically important. So, deep revision and surface level revision are important. So, the very best writers, which is what I'm aiming for you to become, they will revise in everything that I've listed above. But you have to get an early start. You can't just procrastinate and wait till the last minute. You need to have time to make any substantive, large-scale revisions that your paper might need. You also need to understand that revision is an ongoing process, and it is not necessarily something that you can do after your final draft is complete. Also, you need to be objective, and that's where the hard part comes in, as I said in the very beginning of this video. You need to develop the ability to view your own writing with a clear and critical eye. And sometimes that requires you to step away from owning the essay. You have to pretend like it's somebody that you don't know. You have to be cool and you have to manage your own ownership feelings. And that's hard to do, especially if I've asked you to write about something that you're passionate about. But if you plan ahead and you start writing early, then you'll have some time to create a healthy distance from the essay and sort of really take time, spend time away from it, and really work through the issues. The first step in gaining objectivity is to gain some distance. So, for example, if you planned out your writing process, then you'll let yourself take a day or two and have a break away from your work. If you don't have this luxury and you're like me, even an hour of air hockey or a walk over to pick up a hard copy of your draft might be enough for you to clear your heads. Many writers find that their mind keeps working on their papers even while their attention is turned elsewhere. When they then return to their work, that then they have a fresh new set of eyes that are either rested from a nap or from just that brain break or that screen break. And then their minds, your mind is often more detached, but it's also more open as well. So it's kind of a juxtaposition of those two things there. So, does the paper meet your expectations as well as your professors? Well, that's the thing. When you return to your paper, the first thing you want to do is consider whether or not the paper as a whole meets my expectation, as I'm the professor. I have provided you with the rubric for your essay. Take the rubric, print it out, look at it, and look at it as you're reading your essay. Read it through without stopping. Don't get hung up on that troublesome second paragraph or that troublesome introduction or that lack of a conclusion. Just read it through and see what happens. And at that point, the magic will begin to happen and you'll be able to revise as time goes on. Now, then you need to ask yourself these questions. Did I fulfill the requirements of the assignment? Did I say what I intended to say? What strengths does my paper have? What weaknesses does my paper have? I have a couple of students who I know they've said to me so many times, Miss Wood, I hate those commas. Or, oh, Miss Wood, I'm the worst. I'm so bad with fragments. And so they are aware of their weaknesses. Some of them need to work, some students need to work on evidence and elaboration. And that's a really big deal because that helps your line of reasoning, especially when you're writing an argumentative paper. And then you need to ask yourself, do I need another revision? Is there enough time to review and revise as well? And this is where the lack of procrastination comes in. You need to make sure you're spending that time and really working on it. And as you do that, you need to review and be reviewed. So you need to find a writing partner. Next week in class, we will do peer edits. If you are watching this video and you're taking and have previous arrangements with me, you can go ahead and email me your paper and I'll be more than happy to look at your paper and act as a peer editor for you. And I'll tell you the strengths and the weaknesses of your paper using the rubric. And then again, as peer editors in the class, I'm going to put you with someone and you guys are going to swap and read each other's papers. You're going to provide feedback for it. It's really important because if you review the work of others, it'll not only allow you to see someone else's style of writing, but it also will help you understand and improve your own writing. So that is the revision process in a nutshell. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here and just talk to you a little bit more about what we have to do this week. So let me just see. Okay, here. So you do have a grammar practice on revising and editing as well. You do have a transition word PowerPoint that is also under content for week 11. And then there's some sample citations using the MLA citation flowchart. Just a note, when you use MLA, please make sure you are using MLA 9 because that is the most recent update and that is the most important. So for class next week, what you're going to need to have is a rough draft, a printed copy of your rough draft so that we can peer edit in class and I can give you feedback, your other classmates can give you feedback, and so that you can honestly and truly get this thing polished and ready to turn in before we go out onto Thanksgiving break. And then I'll give you feedback. Anyway, that's about it for this week. You don't have any quizzes, you don't have any discussion boards or anything like that, but you do have the rough draft of your essay that you need to have done. And then you also need to make sure that you have taken notes on revising and then do your grammar practice on revising and editing. If there's anything else, I'll reach out by email. But other than that, I hope you have a fantastic week. Enjoy the rest of your week. And as always, if you have questions, reach out. Thanks so much.